Hi everyone, it's me, Liz, and I have a scar on my chin. The story is quite a little bit graphic, so if you don't want to see that, I'm not showing any pictures, but if you don't want to hear that, don't continue. It's quite a little bit dramatic because my whole chin was literally ripped open and I had to get stitches. So here's how that happened. When I was about, I think 9 years old, my parents and I used to have bike trips. We would just drive through the neighborhood, and we were living in a big city, so we didn't really have close access to parks or anything nice where it would be nice to ride a bike and safer, you know. Everything was just sidewalks and skyscrapers and businesses and supermarkets and yeah, not really a lot of nature. You know what I mean? So on that day, I think it was fall, it was a little cold, but we still decided to go out and have a little trip that would end at my grandmother's house. So we were just riding our bikes around the area, next to a street where all the cars were driving. It wasn't the best area, you know, to do that. But my grandmother was living in a kind of quiet neighborhood where there's big streets and stuff, so we had a lot of space to drive. But to get to my grandma's neighborhood, we had to drive through a little side street, a little narrow, a hidden street. I think there was train tracks next to it. It was very narrow and bumpy and not a good street to drive your bike on. So since it was just a straight street, I got a little bored and my dad and I kinda chose to have a little race, you know, to get to the end of the street faster and to make it more fun. I think my mom was kinda annoyed. She was just like, oh my god, just drive normal. Like, this is dangerous, like, why are you doing that? But we didn't care, you know. I was a rebel kid. Grown-ups didn't really like to be around me. I was always playing pranks and sometimes I was just too much, you know. So the bike that I was riding was a little too small for me, you know. I grew out of it a bit. So while I was going really fast, moving my little legs, my knees bumped against the handlebar, and that kind of made me lose control of the bike because the faster I was moving my legs, the harder I was bumping against the handlebar. So I was kind of going like this, and eventually I totally lost control and I just fell. Chin first. I was kind of scratching, like, I was kind of stopping myself with my chin. That was my brake, you know. I was going like this on the ground, scraping my whole chin open. Like, this was all scratched open. So I immediately started crying. I was sitting up. My parents were rushing to me. They were like, oh my god, what's going on? Like, are you hurt? Like, look at me. Lift your chin. Like, show me, show me. My mom was telling my dad, like, call an ambulance, call an ambulance. And she was like trying to comfort me. And I was like, oh my god, an ambulance? Like, what's going on? Like, boop. And I tried to touch my chin and it just hurted. And I saw blood on my hands. And I was like, oh my god. I was so freaked out and I started crying and I hugged my mom. And when we stopped hugging, I looked at her shirt and there was blood on it. And I was like, oh my god, there's blood on it. I'm so sorry. Like, and she was like, no, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. It's okay. It's okay. Just chill. It's gonna be okay. It's gonna be fine. Just let me look. I guess there was dirt in the wound, sand and, like, I don't know, a little particle of twigs. They tried to take care of me as good as they could. I mean, we didn't really have anything there. I think she tried to clean it with water. My dad was calling an ambulance and I think we waited. It felt like forever. Like, it felt like such a long time. It was probably just like 10-15 minutes, but that was just terrible. So when the ambulance came, the paramedics were coming out and they were just looking at me. They told me to come inside. My mom came with me and they were just kind of giving first aid. You know, they were kind of cleaning the wound and looking at it, and then we were driving to the hospital. And when we were driving, I was sitting down and my mom was next to me and she was still trying to calm me down and I was crying and I was like, oh my god, I'm so thankful you're here. I waited like so much and they were totally unimpressed. They were doing something and they were just looking at me like, and I felt so stupid, but it was so much stress for me, but they acted like, they see this all day probably, you know. So while we were driving to the hospital, my dad was kind of alone with the bikes. I don't even know like how this whole thing worked because I really didn't think about that in the moment, but we left my dad alone with 3 bikes and we were kind of not super far from home, but walking wise, it was far. So I don't know how he got all our bikes home and then he was in the hospital too. I have to ask them. I should have asked them before I made the video. I think maybe the bikes got transported in the ambulance, but I really don't remember that he was there. But I remember him being in the hospital. However, we're at the hospital. The next thing I really remember is only my dad being there, me being on a chair, and the doctor's kind of looking at the wound, and then he's like, yeah, we need to give you stitches. I think he was numbing the area so that I wouldn't really feel the stitches that much, but I did feel them. So he was stitching me up while my dad was standing behind him looking at everything. And he was like, yeah, you're not gonna feel anything, it's gonna be fine. But it was hurting. And him and my dad were kind of making fun of me. The doctor was like, yeah, if you feel pain, it's okay, you can like let it out, whatever, like it's fine, you don't need to just suck it up and you know, you can express yourself. And the next stitch really hurted. And I was like just making a noise. I think I was like, ouch, or something with my little high voice. And my dad and the doctor just started laughing at me. Like you said 1 second before, it was fine. And then I kind of tried to not be so little kid-like, which I was a little kid, so and yeah, I was just like, oh, ouch, because it really hurted. And when he was done, it was all fine. He told me to come back. It wasn't one of those threads that would just dissolve. I had to go to the doctor a couple of weeks later so that when everything was kind of healed, they could pull out the thread. And I had to go a couple of times, and it's a disgusting feeling. I hope you never have to go through that. And I think my chin healed rather fast, like there was no complications or anything. I didn't have any infections. But what I did also have from the fall is my elbows scratched open, and I had scratches on my arms and my knees that altogether really hurt. I have pictures from afterwards that we took at home, but I don't have them here. Maybe you're gonna live a happier life if I don't show them, because it's not nice. But yeah, that's the story of how I got the scar underneath my chin. So if you guys like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. If you want to see more story times and other videos, stalk me everywhere on social media. The links are down there in the description. I hope that you're having a good day or night or whenever you're watching this, and I see you in my next video. Bye! I can zoom out. Hi everyone, it's me, Liz, and my hair does not what I want it to do. I hate when my hair doesn't obey me. It hates me because I cut it. Why are you doing this to me?